Today, we're replacing the cooling system on a Norcold 8 cubic foot RV refrigerator. Our model number, ARCLWN8-3, adapts to fridge model numbers 682, a 683, a 482, a 483, a 6082, and a 6182. So let's get started. Today we're going to get started changing our cooling unit in our refrigerator. There are tools we're going to require to do the job, and here are the tools required. You're going to need a ball peen hammer, a can of any type of penetrating fluid you have on hand. Your cooling unit will come with a set of new screws and washers to install it with, a cordless drill, a 90-degree angle screwdriver, a Phillips bit or Phillips screwdriver, a 5/16 driver bit, this is called, a small pair of needle nose pliers, small crescent wrench, a side cutter pliers, needle nose pliers, a small level, a putty knife, a X-Acto knife. This is the tube of thermal mastic that will come with your cooling unit. A 7-inch 2x4, a 4.5-inch 1x3, a roll of electrical tape, a large crescent wrench, and of course a caulking gun for the thermal mastic. So those are the things that will be required to do the job on your fridge. Here we have an 862 Norcold RV refrigerator. We're about to show you how to remove the cooling unit from it. The procedure I show you today will apply to your 5 cubic foot, 6 and 8 cubic foot refrigerators. The first thing we want to do is get some tools gathered up that we require to do the job, so we're not running around looking for things later on when we're starting our job. So we're going to open the refrigerator, freezer door, and we're going to remove any shelving that's in the freezer department here. Some of the shelving is self-standing on the floor of the freezer, and some may be slid in with grooves along the side walls of the freezer compartment, and there'll be little white clips that you can lift with your thumbnail to assist you in pulling the shelving out. Once you have the shelving out of your way, you're going to see 8 screws and washers in the freezer department. You're going to remove them with your cordless drill, like so. Okay, we've removed those screws from the freezer section. Now we're moving down into the refrigerator section. First thing you want to do is you're going to have some shelving in the fridge here. You want to remove the top two shelving by lifting easily on these white clips and sliding the shelving out. Once you get your first 2 shelving components out of the way, then you're going to look over and you're going to see a thermostat wire attached to the fin section. Pull it off gently and just move it out of your way. It's no electricity involved there, safe, and we'll get started on the screws. When you look inside the fins here, you're going to see 4 screws in the fin section. You're going to take your 5/16 inch driver, you're going to go in between there, and you're going to remove those 4 screws from the fin. Okay, the next step, we're going to close the doors of the refrigerator, and we're going to get a blanket or a piece of cardboard to lay the refrigerator down on so that we don't scratch up the front of the refrigerator. Then, quite easily, grab the refrigerator and bring it down to the face of itself. And it's not too heavy. Take your time, and boom, we've got the thing laying down on its face. Now that you have your fridge laying down on the floor, you want to remove your attaching screws holding the cooling unit. You're going to remove the top screw from the condenser area. Then you're going to move down here, and in your coiling section, there's 2 rails. You're going to remove the Phillips screw that's in here. There's 1 over here. And there may be 2 more up in this upper area. Some models have it, some don't. Now that we've removed the screws attaching the cooling unit in the back of the fridge, we're going to move down here to your wiring block. You're going to see 4 terminals. The left side terminals, you're going to have a positive and a negative. And then you're going to have your 2 element wiring terminals. You're going to remove both wiring for the electric element, And quite often these two 12-volt wires, it's clearly marked plus and minus, so don't mix those up when it comes to reinstalling. Then you're going to go over and remove your sparker wire from the sparker box, and that's all the wiring required to disconnect prior to removal of the cooling unit. Now that we've disconnected the electrical system, we have to remove the heat stack system from the cooling unit. You're going to take the screw up front here, Phillips screw, and remove it from the cooling unit, and it's going to remove that box at the bottom of the stack. If you look in here, there's two screws down in the bottom of this box. You're going to remove them screws, both of them, and it's going to allow you to remove this cover from the bottom of that stack, like so. Now, another thing I want you to do, in here we have a 7/16 nut that has to be unscrewed from the burner. You're going to use a line wrench or a 7/16 inch wrench, and you're going to remove this nut. When you've got it removed and loosened off, you're going to pull the tubing away from the burner. Now, you are going to see the orifice will stick on the line. Sometimes the orifice will stay in the burner itself. You remove that orifice, and you've got to look, there's a very small copper wire here. Copper washer, pardon me, and you want to make sure that that's still in place. And if it's not there, you want to make sure you retrieve it. And I'll show you a little bit further on the video about that system. Now we're going to go to the sheet metaling here. We're going to take the door off that accesses the heating element. You're going to remove your heating element. Sometimes these elements are free and you can wiggle them out. Sometimes they're seized in, rusted in there, and you won't be able to remove it at this time. Don't worry about that. We'll deal with that a little later. Squeeze your heating stack and remove all the little clips that hold it on, and remove the heating stack and insulation from the cooling unit. Once you've done that, you're going to see a baffle up here at the top of the chimney. You're going to take this baffle and slide it out and put it aside for installation later. Put it in there right with your heat stack. Now, at this point now, we're ready to remove the cooling unit from the refrigerator. Now that we have the heating stack system taken off, now we're going to remove the unit. Take about a 7-inch 2x4, place it here, take a pry bar or a crowbar, put it under the big pipe and on top of the block of 2x4, and start prying down to let the cooling unit break loose from the fridge. And you can see this one comes out pretty easily. If it doesn't come out easily, and you see maybe some tape or something restricting the cooling unit from coming out, you can always take a X-Acto knife, cut around the edge. Be careful not to cut any wiring that might be here. Be careful of that. That's the only wiring that'll be involved there. So as you work the unit, you'll see it starting to break loose and pry loose. When you figure you've got it pretty good and loose, you put your tools down, and you and a friend, if you want, can grab this and wiggle it, and bingo, out it comes. And you're going to carry it over, and you're going to place it upside down on the floor here, because then we have some components we have to remove from the burner section here. Now that we have the cooling unit out of the fridge, this is one more step we have to do prior to being ready to install a new cooling unit. There are two screws here, and this is a burner. You've got to remove these screws and take the burner out of the cooling unit. Put that aside for a moment. And the sparker is held in with a screw. You take that screw out and remove the sparker, which these two pieces will be replaced into the new cooling unit. Now, as I told you earlier, I want to show you how to clean a burner and an orifice. Very important to do this. To clean an orifice and a burner, it's quite easy to do. You have the burner here. You want to make sure that there's no rust particles or dirt in this burner. It's a hollow tube, so you want to tap the tube and make sure there's no debris inside this burner. You can blow it out with your mouth. Make sure it's nice and clear. Make sure these slots aren't blocked or rusted or blocked up with any dirt. I know this one's clean. That is the burner. This is the orifice, right there. And in this orifice is a very, very small hole. we want to take this orifice and soak it in some alcohol for approximately 10 minutes. So you're going to put it in your alcohol, soak it there. 10 minutes later, you're going to take the orifice out of the alcohol and gently blow through it with your mouth again. Blow it out, and now the orifice will be clean. That little hole will be clean again to allow the right amount of propane to go into the burner so that you'll have a good sufficient flame. Because you have to have a good flame and a proper flame for your fridge to work properly on propane. So that's why this step is important, to clean your burner and orifice. Now, before we're ready to install the new cooling unit you purchased from us, you want to look at your box area where your cooling unit came out. You're going to see remnants of what's called Maztec. And anything in this area, you want to take a putty knife and clean it out of there. Scrape it out with a putty knife and get it all out of the fridge, because you don't want that remaining. We're going to be putting some new stuff in there. So it comes out pretty easily with a putty knife. Get all that debris, Maztec out of the way. You don't have to be super clean with it. You get the bulk of it out of there. Okay, I just put it in my hand. Get this off the pin area. Pretty easy. It's just, some of it's kind of old and brittle, but this stuff is kind of still pliable. So I'm going to clean this up. All right. Don't overdo it. Don't get too fussy. Get the bulk of it out of there. All right, as you see me doing. Now, after you get the bulk of that Maztec out of the way, you want to look the fridge over and see if there's any remaining chunks of foam that may have stayed in this area when you pull the cooling unit out. So in this case here, I see a little block of foam right here, a little piece of foam. Take your knife and cut that out of the way, get that out, and look for any other remaining chunks of foam that may have come from your cooling unit and stayed in the box. And if everything else looks good, then clean up this area, and then your fridge is ready to receive the new cooling unit. Now, I've taken the new cooling unit you've got and I've placed it with the foam facing upwards on the back of your fridge. You're now going to Maztec the pipes of your fridge. Now, you've seen where I've done the Maztecing already, and I'll finish up on this pipe here. Don't be afraid to use lots of it. You can't hurt it by putting too much. The more you have, the better conductivity you're going to have between the pipe and the refrigerator. Because these pipes get cold, and you want this Maztec to help transfer the cold from the pipe into your refrigerator. Now, once we've Mazteced it, then we're about ready to take the cooling unit, and we're going to flip it over, and we're going to install it into the fridge. We're going to place it down into the fridge. The next step, you're going to take your cleaned burner, and you're going to put it into your cooling unit, and make sure the slots here are facing downwards into the chimney. So it fits in just one direction. There's a slot in the back where it fits, and you're going to place that there. Then you're just going to take a screw that came out of it, and you're going to put a screw to secure it. So it's just going to be a screw there, and you're going to screw it in to lock it in place. There's your burner in place. Now you're going to take your sparker probe, and just beside the burner, there's another hole here. You're going to put the sparker probe in, and you're going to place it, and it's going to find its own screw hole, which is right there. And you're going to screw that in tight, like so. Put it in place, like so. Get it nice and snug. Boom. And while we're talking, at this moment, you want this tip of this sparker probe to be about 1/8 of an inch above the burner. So it's important to have it about 1/8 of an inch above the burner so that the spark has a gap to jump to light the propane up. And now we're ready to take this cooling unit and Maztec it and put it into the refrigerator. Now that we have the unit Maztec to prepare to go in the fridge, we're going to put it in the fridge. So, your unit will come with a new stack on it, like you see here. So I'm going to take this and turn it over and place it into the refrigerator. And they're not that heavy, and it should settle right in place, just like that. It should fit like a glove. And there it is, it's sitting in there. There's your new stack on your cooling unit. Now, what we're going to do is install the baffle and the heating element. So we're going to get the baffle that we had, that you took out of your old element, and we're going to slide it into your new cooling unit. Very important to have this. Without the baffle, the fridge will not work properly on propane. So you're going to slide it right in like that. There. Now, we're going to install the electric element. You're going to take your electric element. You're going to take this door off that's clipped on your stack. Remove it. And you've got to feel around. You've got to feel for the tube that the element goes into. So you're just going to take your fingers. If you want to, you can unclip the bottom of the stack right here. Okay, there. That'll help you. And you're going to fiddle until you find the tube that the element goes in, which is right here. I've got it with my fingers. So you're going to take your element and you're going to slide it in place in your cooling unit. So you're going to work it around the insulation and slide it down in. There it is. It's in place. Then you can take your stack cover again, roll it over a little bit, get your stack back in, tuck your insulation out of the way, close up your stack. Okay, now we're going to take our door and we're going to put it back on our stack, which was provided for you. Flip it in place like that, and you're going to hook it and snap it in place. It takes a little fiddling, but you'll get it. Okay, like so. Oh, not quite, but like so. Now that we have the cooling unit placed into the fridge, we're going to fasten it down with the screws that are provided to hold it down. So we're going to screw in this screw right in here and fasten that top screw in place. Then we're going to come down here, and there's 2 screws in the bottom. Now what I like to do sometimes to set those screws in place, I'll take it with a pair of needle nose pliers and put it down in there and get it placed so it's in place to use. So then you get that in there, you put that one in, then you screw this one in, and possibly 2 more up here on some models. Now we're going to insert our orifice and we're going to put it on the end of the propane line that goes into the burner. Insert it into the burner. Start that nut with your fingers. Get it started so you don't cross thread it with your fingers. And then tighten it all the way, the rest of the way with a wrench. And snug it down nice and snug. So now you're going to tighten up that line. And don't over tighten it, just get it nice and snug with your 7/16 inch wrench. Then you're going to go over here and you'll see your sparker wire. You're going to hook it up into your sparker box, like so. Then you're going to have 2 other wires here coming from your electric element. You're going to see 2 terminals on the right hand side of the electrical terminal or box here. One goes on one terminal, one goes on the other. And it doesn't matter if you cross these up because it's AC current. So as long as these are both on the right hand terminals, you're fine. That'll leave you 2 other terminals, and to my left is the positive and to my right is the negative. Those are the 2 terminals that your 12 volt supply from your unit goes onto the fridge when you install the fridge in your unit. Now we're going to stand the refrigerator up to install the screws that go in the fridge. So, careful with your back and get this thing standing up. Now, open up your freezer door. We're going to install our freezer screws back into the freezer that we took out earlier. So you're going to take your 5/16 driver and you're going to replace all of these screws that you took out with your 5/16 driver. Now that we've reinstalled the screws and washers for our freezer section, we're going to move down below to the fridge section. And we're going to reinstall the 4 screws that go into the fin section in the freezer. I put the screw on the end of a Phillips screwdriver and I place it in the hole to get it started. Okay, like that. And then you take your 5/16 driver and drive it home. And you do that for all 4 screws in the fridge. The last step, you're going to reattach your thermostat wire to your fins with your little clip here. You're going to reinstall your 2 top shelving here. Then you're going to just close up the doors of your refrigerator and you've now completed the job and ready to reinstall it into your RV. Congratulations. You have now successfully installed your brand new Arctic Cold cooling system in your RV fridge. And now your fridge is working like a brand new one. Be sure to give your fridge 6 to 8 hours to reach normal operating temperatures. This product, the cooling system, comes with a lifetime warranty. If you require any assistance concerning your fridge, don't hesitate to call our toll-free number, technical support number, at 888-782-6665. It's open 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And thank you very much for your business.